Hamlet, Act 3, Scene 1. To be or not to be? That is his question. Well, is it nobler to suffer in the mind and let it continue to go on? Those are William Shakespeare's words. My words are to live, to die, to stop, to keep trying, to give up and quit, or to keep going. This is what I say. It's easier said than done, but it can be done. It's easier said than done, meaning that it is easier to talk about something, to say something. It's more difficult to follow up what you say with action, with actual behavior behind what it is that you say. No matter what it is that you're talking about, we all run into difficulty of life. No matter what it is, no matter what subject, I don't care what you're talking about, things have a way of getting difficult, whether you're talking about sports, whether you're talking about academics, whether you're talking about community, social, whatever it is, difficulty is something that always happens right before things get great. In order to do the difficult, you have to have a plan. Difficulty, being able to handle difficulty, is actually a prerequisite to success. Tim Glover says in his book, Tim Glover, who is a famous professional athlete trainer, he says, success is pressure undealt with. But you have to have a plan for the difficult. You have to have a plan in order to succeed. It's challenging. Most of us, when faced with difficult moments, we have the potential, the propensity to shrink, to flight, to run, to shrink down and run for cover. Believe it or not, I did the 6th grade twice. And in my first stint in the 6th grade, it was in city public school. And opposite of my second stint was in Catholic school. But in my first tour of the 6th grade, they would put on these events, and they would bring us all in the auditorium. And they would have musical people. It was almost like a circus. And they had acrobats and they had jugglers. So me being first time in the 6th grade, I ran to the jugglers, so fascinated. They had it set up like stations in the auditorium. And we go over to these individuals and they're teaching us how to juggle. They start off with objects, all types of stuff, tennis balls, basketballs, bowling pins. And then when they got ready to communicate to us actually how to juggle, they start using handkerchiefs. Different color handkerchiefs to describe and illustrate the difference of things. I was fascinated. I understood now why they use handkerchiefs because, of course, you know, handkerchiefs are slow to go up, slow to come down, and they were juggling these things. And so I went home, got on the bus and went home and looked around the house. And side note, my parents would hate when I would learn something new. Stuff in the house would come up missing. Stuff that they were looking for the next day would come up missing and be in my room because I was fascinated by the new concept. Well, I'm in my room juggling. I'm frustrated for hours, defeated. And I grabbing tissue and toilet paper and socks and all these other types of things, trying to figure out how to juggle. And then something dawned on me. I remember something that they said. They said, follow the pattern, follow the system. So it wasn't about them managing all these different things, all these heavy objects. It wasn't about any of that. It was really about finding the pattern, finding the system that worked, and working the system. This is how the difficult gets done, is that when you find your system, when you find your pattern, and you work your system, you work your pattern. Believe it or not, well, I was this tall when I came out of my mother. I was 6'5" as a baby. Yeah, salute to my mom. That's why for every Mother's Day, I give her millions of dollars and gold-plated roses. I came out 6'5", but being tall was a complex that I started to have around the 6th grade. It was bad. It was really bad. I couldn't relate. I wasn't in common with any of my classmates, and they could do things that I couldn't do. I could do things that they couldn't do. I could reach the top of the refrigerator, they couldn't. They could sit crisscross applesauce, I couldn't. And so here I am trying to figure out and find my place. But one of the things that really was a struggle for me in being so tall at that age was my feet. Now I wear a size 14, but when I was 11, my feet grew every year that I got older. So here I am with these big feet trying to fit into small people, small minds. So what I would do is something that people have a tendency to do. This is a real true story. I would wear too small shoes. I would try to stuff my big feet into small shoes trying to fit in. I want to say this, that you run the risk of hurting yourself and damaging who you are authentically when you try to fit yourself in the small minds and the small shoes of other people. You run the risk of deforming your own identity when you stuff your big feet into small shoes. It wasn't until I went off and played college basketball that I ran into where I have friends now that are 6'7", 6'11", and 7 foot that I realized that I wasn't the only mutant walking around on the earth. But it was then that I realized that my big feet do not have to fit inside of small shoes. And that's the thought, that's the thinking. You never shrink, never dumb yourself down, never water yourself down to be accepted inside of the group. Well, I went on and because of my height and because of other complications, I barely graduated high school. That's a part of my academic story. I barely graduated high school, but I was able to. But I was graced to be able to play basketball. My coach, the late, great Skip Prosser, was so concerned about me academically that he had me enrolled and to be a college student actually before I was a high school graduate. So I would leave classes on a Tuesdays and Thursdays. I would go home real quick as a high school student. Then I would get on the bus, go up Redding Road, get off on Victory Parkway and walk down to be a part of a Tuesday and a Thursday math class. I was a college student before I was a high school graduate. And I was in my feelings. I didn't have no confidence in it. This wall of opportunities, this difficult of things that I wanted to accomplish. It was easy when I said it, but it was so difficult to really actually do it. I didn't really know the commitment that it really took to be a college athlete, a student athlete. I didn't really know what it meant to say I want to do something and then turn around and actually in my behavior have a plan to actually do it. Well, I'll tell you, I graduated with a 1.6 grade point average, but because I was able to be relentless enough, which is part of being relentless is telling myself the truth, telling yourself the truth, being willing to make the proper and necessary adjustments based upon what I say my goals are. I was able to finish college in 3 years. To be able to be relentless is to challenge yourself to be all that you've been created to be. It's easier said than done, but trust me, it can be done. Thank you.